speak about Thierno, Barry and Tyler Dibling. Obviously, two players, Joe, who've kind of struggled to make an impact, if that's what you want to say, and even struggled to get minutes. I think after the Palace game, people can disagree with me or not, but right now, to take the pressure off Barry, I think Beto would probably almost cemented himself as the main striker. Whether you agree with that or not, I think that is the case, because Barry just didn't look up to scratch against Palace. He looked off the pace. He didn't look strong enough, to a point of weak, and that is not an overriding criticism of him. That is just an observation, and you know, he's going to improve. I think Tyler Dibling, Moyes has tried to throw him in certain times, and he just obviously failed to make an impact. I've been a little bit frustrated with certainly Dibling's use from Moyes, where I think he could have used him a lot more in terms of from the bench, giving him a little bit more minutes to make more of an impact. So I guess my question is, how does the manager integrate both of them into the side?
Yeah, I think probably twofold. I think firstly, and this might sound counterintuitive, but I think what would probably be quite useful now is for Moyes just to settle on a team.
Yeah.
And if that is a team that doesn't start with Barry and Dibling, then so be it. I think that because that forward line is doing all right, but it's not quite. And we've spoken in the past about how I think in that Everton side there are a lot of confidence players, and certainly in the attacking dimensions, you know, you put Beto and Barry and Dibling, probably Alcaraz, you know, amongst them. And probably the worst thing that you can do is constantly giving them a game and a half. You know, one comes in, doesn't do very well, you hook him after an hour.
Yeah.
Next one does all right, a little bit better. So then you start him the next game, but then he doesn't very well, so you hook him after an hour, and you just had this kind of cycle where nobody ever builds the confidence. I think that with Beto, you know, he's a handful. Like, he always is and always has been a handful. He creates opportunities for others just by being on the pitch. Yeah, there's a lot of finesse and ruthlessness that's perhaps missing there, but we do know, because we've seen it, that when he does get his confidence up, you know, he can be a really good finisher, and he can be a real asset to this side. So I think that what you perhaps do now is you stick with Beto for a couple of games and you go with it. And then what you hope is that you create... So that's my first one. So for part one of the plan is to actually not have them in the team. But then part two hopefully comes from that. The team settles a little bit more. And I do think this side, you know, it's done a couple of times already this season. I do think this side will blow away a few teams this season. Like I do. I think it's got the company, it's got the potential. And when Moyes can get those fast starts, right, like he did against Wolves in the league, like he did against West Ham, but didn't necessarily get the goals coming from it. You know, the hope is you create conditions where it's far easier for these players to come on and find their confidence. So you hopefully end up in situations where you 2-0 up again, you know, with an hour gone, and then you can bring these players on when they're not being desperately asked to. Can you produce a moment of magic that will win us or get us back into this game? So part two is Moyes becoming a little bit more proactive with his substitutions, and hopefully you'll have seen a bit of encouragement from that after his substitutions were so effective against Palace. Again, something that we've spoken about, you know, a fair bit. In the first kind of 6 weeks of the season, you made a lot of changes that were so late that they didn't really have the chance. So it becomes another black mark against their name because it didn't make an impact. But when they've had 2 minutes, not. So hopefully Everton can get into more situations where the state of the game makes it easier for the likes for Moyes to make earlier substitutions, which then gives, you know, the likes of Barry and Dibling, who are young players, hugely talented players, but young players. And, you know, we've got to remember we need to be patient with some of these. Not going to get everything straight away, but gives them more minutes to come on in games under less pressure, where hopefully they can then find that moment, that, you know, where they kind of get that lift-off moment for Everton, and then that'll breed the confidence and go from there.
And I think that completely agree with everything that you've just said. My only worry and concern with it all, now I'm not saying Alcaraz is the saviour after what he did in his second half performance against Crystal Palace, but he did come on and he had a huge impact. I know Tim Irabuman did as well, because he ended up winning the penalty. But in terms of what we've got now, in terms of playing for players' strengths, if Beto is the one that you're going to go with, or Moyes is going to go with, Alcaraz has got to be the key. to that, because quite clearly they formed a bit of a partnership from the back end of last season. Said on a previous podcast that was without a doubt one of the positives from the back end of last season. It's the first time, from what I can recall, this season that Moyes has kind of gone with a Beto and an Alcaraz partnership, number 10 striker. So I understand a little bit if he doesn't go with that on Saturday, because it is City away. You'd expect Kane and Dewsbury Hall to come back in the team, but I don't want Moyes to kind of just throw that away now, that Alcaraz Beto partnership, because quite clearly the balls that Alcaraz was playing into Beto, it was beneficial to him. It played to Beto's strengths. So I think Alcaraz is key to getting the best out of Beto. I think that is me summary and me point from that. I think Dibling's time is obviously going to come. I think without a doubt he needed more time. He needed more game time to try and make an impact in some of the games where we were either drawing or getting beat. I'd like to see, if we are potentially losing the game or drawing the game and Moyes wants to go for it, then you give Dibling that 20-25 minutes rather than just like a 5 or 8 minute cameo to make that impact. I don't think he's a player that you're going to bring on where you're 1-0 up and you know he's a player that sees out the game. I don't think that's going to be that. So there's always going to be that pressure on Dibling when he comes on off the bench. It's like, well, he's the one that you're looking for to make that change, to create that chance or score that goal. Barry, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to fit him in the team if Beto continues with some good form. I mean, this was shot down the other day, and it's going to be very difficult to play him in this position, but I almost see Barry as like at this moment in time, at this stage of his career, he could play on the wings. It's just where would you fit him in with, obviously, Ndiaye and Grealish? You're not. I think that's the point, but he's just not strong enough to lead that line at this moment in time.
No, so, I mean, again, I think the best way to do it is try to create the conditions which mean that he can find confidence under less pressure in his favoured position. And if that means sticking with Beto, hopefully Beto can find the form that he gets the 2 goals in the first hour that allow Moyes to make earlier changes.